Hey guys, back with another video, and today I am coming at you with my April wrap up, my owls wrap up. Hey guys, sorry my camera is moving a little bit. All right. So in my April TBR, we're going to be talking about the four career choices I decided to go after, and they were the care of magical children, the librarian. I'm going to mess this name up, but I'm pretty sure it's called the Aurora or Aurora, and the Quidditch referee. So this year is my first year participating in the Owls. I just so happened to see it pop up on my Twitter, and then it popped up a few more times on my my YouTube browsing. So the subjects I had to read for all four of these are as follows. Sorry if I'm looking down so much, I'm trying to read what I wrote down. So first we have Ancient Ruins, we have Arithmancy, we have Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, History of Magic, Muggle Studies, Potions, and Transfiguration. So we had those 9 books. And to my surprise, I actually read all 9 books. So I have I have 6 books that are physical copy books. I have 2 books that are Kindles, and then I had 1 book, I believe, that was, no, actually 3 of my books were Kindles, and a few of them, I think 4 or 5 of the books, I also read along or listened along with the audiobooks. So some I had to just read, some I followed along with the audiobooks. And I almost found an audiobook for every single one of these. Why did I have the audiobooks help me with most of these books, you say? Because I have children who are consistently distracting, which is okay. They're children, that's their jobs. And I also have classes that I am still in, and of course my classes are before my reading for pleasure. So, oh, and I'm also doing a Devo for a church that I have to read for, and church takes precedent over the school reading, but the school reading I get done. But between those two, those readings take place, and then my children are just, lifelong distractors because they're children. That's what they do. All right, so the first book on my list that I read is called Zombie Cherry, and it is a manga, and I found this on my Kindle. I was just kind of scrolling. I literally put in my search engine books with hearts on the cover, and this was one of the mangas that came up. And my oldest son and I both like scary stuff, but I still want to have scary things for him that are also appropriate for his age. He also likes mangas, and if you guys know anything about anime or mangas, some of them are really hard to find that are kid friendly. So I found this one. I read it. I liked it. He's gonna read it sometime this week. But yeah, so the hearts on the cover, if you look into the skeleton eyes, they're shaped like hearts. The white skeletons are heart-shaped eyes. So I believe the prompt is for Ancient Ruins. You have to read a book that has a heart on the cover or heart in the title, the word heart in the title. So that was my first one. Second one, I had Arithmancy, and the prompt for Arithmancy was to read a book that was outside of your favorite genre. For that, I read the book The Way It Is by Kareem. Oh, let me back up. Zombie Cherry, I gave 4 stars to, because it was cute. It was a different way, a very creative, different way for somebody to turn into a zombie. And I overall just enjoyed it. They're like, some mangas are long enough to where you could put it down, or you can find a place where you stop. I just read straight through it. It was super cute, easy to run through. Okay, now for arithmetic, this is outside of my favorite genre. My favorite genre is horror, or thrillers, or mysteries, just somewhere along that line. This is none of those things. This is I think this would go into the category of urban, I believe. But this was, for me personally, was in the category of I would not recommend to anyone. In fact, I gave this book a 1 star. I gave it a try because a friend of mine had recommended me to read this, because occasionally I do read outside of my genre, and I usually end up liking what I read, and I wanted to give this a try because it was just something different. There were 2 chapters, chapter 1 and not chapter 1, I believe it's chapter 2. Chapter 2 and chapter 16, which chapter 2 is, maybe it's not chapter 2, I don't know. Whichever one it was about the brother's birthday. Maybe it's not chapter 2, maybe it's chapter 4. So now I'm looking at chapter 2, that doesn't look like it. Okay, actually it's not even chapter 4. I'm completely off, I probably should have wrote this down. Chapter 3 and chapter 16. Yeah, chapter 16. So chapter 3, chapter 16, there's another chapter where the main character's girlfriend moves, and the person that she is working with tells her a story of something that happened to her, and that was a chapter. And then the very last chapter of this book, which was chapter 31, I believe. Look, all of those chapters were extremely problematic. 2 of those chapters were problematic in the age gap between the 2 people that those things happened with. And the fact that the 3rd chapter, which is the first chapter I mentioned that I didn't like, has nothing to do with this book, and it's just wrong to be in here. And then part of what happened in that 3rd chapter happened on the last chapter that I mentioned, which was just uncalled for. The writing style they didn't know. So the flow of the story went well in the aspect of you probably didn't want to put the book down, but the writing style was completely off. Like, you had people talking so slang, and then all of a sudden they were extremely proper. And it wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm in front of my mom or somebody that I have to be proper in front of. It was just at weird times. And then the person that's like, the way they tried to tell the narrative's voice, which is the one person that's sitting there just talking about everybody, it just didn't work. It didn't work. If they would have just left the properness for, like, you know, all the thoughts, or, you know, he said, she said, that part of the writing, then maybe it would have fit. And then when people are like, for the actual dialogue, for the dialogue to be slang, then that would have been different. But this was just off in so many ways. Like, it was gross, it was disgusting, it was off. I would never ever recommend this book to anyone, and I can't. Nope. And that's not to say that I will not take any more recommendations from the person who recommended this book for me, because that may not be the only type of reading that that person reads. They could read all kind of other stuff, because I read more than just my genre. It's just I go outside of my genre here and there. But that's not happening. So next one is Charms. Charms is a book with a white cover. The first pick I had was actually it. This was my first pick, right? I tried to start over, go from the beginning, and then halfway through this month I realized this is just taking way too long to read. I'm not going to read any more of my books for my owls to even pass a single owl if I keep up with this book. Because look how thick this book is. And the bookmark is actually where I stopped reading. These other two marks are like points when I get to certain points. And then I'll look through the book for another point to mark off, so that way I can get through them that way. But oh my goodness, it's so much. But I did get lucky and I found the audiobook, because this was my original audiobook that I got from the library, and it was gonna work for me at one point because I was still going back and forth to work and having to go back and forth for 30 minutes at a time. So there are CDs. I only have a CD player in my car. I don't have a CD player anywhere else. And most of the movies that we watch are on Netflix right now. So I haven't even been using my DVD player much. And I'm not sure if DVD players play strictly audio CDs. I don't know if they do that. So, and I don't want to get my DVD player messed up, because it's also my PlayStation, and I'm not about to buy another PlayStation. That ain't happening. So I will keep this on my TBR for May, because I am far along in it and I want to finish this book. Because if you guys have been watching my channel long enough, you know that I've been attacking this since October. So I want to get finished with that. So I did not do that one, but instead I picked up toot. That's close. There we go. Sorry, having trouble with that. My Kindle app doesn't want to work for me. Alright. So instead, I picked Letters from the Church by Francis Chan. And I absolutely love this book. I gave this book a 5-star review on my Goodreads. And the review I wrote was really short because it's pretty simple and straight to the point. This book just pretty much tells us like how we need to just be careful of ourselves, of not taking what we want from the Bible and living and twisting it and living it off that. That we need to be careful of taking the Bible for what it is, and knowing, the historical context behind it, knowing that we have to live by what the word says, not what we interpret the word to be, as far as like pretty much like sin is sin. There's no black and white. Sin is sin. This sin isn't bigger than that sin. It's all just sin. Like and it also talks about like relationships, like how we are to talk to one another. It talks to us about like we shouldn't be how do I want to say it, dressing up the Bible to make it something that is like really cool and sweet and hip, that we want to draw people in that way, that we should just know that God's word is God's word, and we really shouldn't add anything to it or make it to where people are going to want to come to read it by having the most hip band, or the most hip pastor, or the most hip um, decorations in our church. And because someone didn't like what the Bible said in this chapter, we shouldn't go, well, maybe we'll just take part of that out, and we can only do this, so that way you can be doing it partially. Like, it pretty much is like a slap in the face. Hey, if you're doing this, sit back and reflect. It's not a book and this is just my interpretation of the book, but from what I read in the book anyway. And it's not saying that what we're doing as a church is just wrong. Like, some people will find a reason to manipulate and tell you that it's wrong, and Christians are only hypocrites, Christians can't do anything right, because a lot of what the Bible is, like, people just don't want to hear it because it rubs us the wrong way. But most things that are good for us are going to rub us the wrong way. I mean, it just is what it is. So I don't know. I really just thought it was a really good book. It is recommended that you read this book with the Bible alongside to, read the entire chapters of where the verse is coming from, or to do your own research in general of the Bible. Like, it kind of just starts to ignite you to want to do your own research of the Bible. Where did it come from? Who's talking in it? Who's who's writing the chapters in the Bible? It kind of, for me, ignites that sort of thing. But I mean, I study my scriptures as I read them anyway, but I always read through the book once first, and then go back to annotate, and then research those parts in the Bible. I love doing it that way. I retain things a lot better when I do it that way, when it's a book that I read that I can annotate. But I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read for next prompt is Defense Against the Dark Arts. I read The Water Dancer, and I don't want to mess up that name, because I don't want to mess up this person's name. I think the last name is Coates, or Coatsy. Nope. By this author, The Water Dancer. This is a historical fiction, and the prompt is to read a book that is set at the sea, or a sea coast, or by the sea. So any and everything that has to do with their powers in here, their conduction powers, has to do with water. And they can either do it like in a lake, a sea. It has a lot to do with the emotions, them looking and seeing in their mind's eye, in their heart, and then they use the water that's nearby to conduct, if it's safe. But the character that this book follows is a very well written character. It's a very good book. It has a lot of his emotions, not just what he feels in his heart, but what he also thinks in his mind. And it shows the struggle between his heart and his mind. He does get into some trouble in here because he's going with his heart and not his head, his mind. But this book follows a child that is born of a slave mother, but has a master as his father, and it's just brutal. It's brutal. It's hard to read at some points. It's, I don't know, because it takes you on a journey in your mind that makes you want to be like, oh, I want this for him, and then when it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and it makes you upset. But I gave this book a 3-star because it is not something different that I haven't read already about that era. And I know that sounds stupid because I mean, horror is the same thing over and over again. Thrillers, all of that stuff is the same thing over and over again. But the writing styles that people have make it to where it feels like it's something new. Um, and I don't know. And all of that is still going to make this sound even worse or even more terrible because, I mean, I don't know. Because it's the whole idea of slavery and, or not idea, the whole slavery issue altogether. It's not something to take lightly, but I'm just tired of reading about it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm tired of reading about it. I know what happened, or from the history books, from other books that I do like that I read. It's just, I don't know. This book was so hard to read. It was so slow, very hard to get through. I don't know, but the plot itself and the storyline was good, but the book just wasn't interesting. I don't know. And I don't want to make it seem like, oh, slavery should have been something that's interesting to read. No, it's something that should be horrible to read about. But there was nothing in this particular story that just kept me wanting to read. And that's the only way I can explain it. Like you pretty much knew this person's story within the first 3 or 4 chapters of the book. So everything else that came after was like, can you hurry up and tell me what happened? I want to know what happened. So I think it was really probably the writing style. I don't know. But it did not work for me. Would I recommend this book to someone else? Absolutely, because what I don't like doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't like it, and it is a good book. It's not like, oh my goodness, I have to read that again, but it was a good book, and I am happy that I did read it. I gave it a 3 stars. Next book is Herbology. Herbology was to read a book that started with an M as the title. So for the book with the M as a title, oh, this isn't even the right picture, or this isn't even the right book. I have a bunch of these. It's More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. In the Dark. I say in the dark. Let's see if I can get picture up here. Da, 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 da. Sorry about that. I thought I had all this stuff pulled up. And guess I didn't. So, More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The book that I actually have is part 3, so it's not even the second one. But so I read that one because I had already started because it's a trilogy, it's a 3-book set. I already started it. I finished the first book, so I wanted to go into the second book. I mean, there's nothing to tell other than it's just as great as the first one. The stories are so cheesy and so crazy. It's meant for children. I loved it. It was cheesy and crazy. And I did have favorites in there, and I wrote them down on a separate piece of paper that I have no idea where they are, but I do know that the very last story in the book I absolutely loved. I had a copy of this through my library app, but then I sent it back to the library when I was finished with it, not thinking that I should have checked it out again so that I could have it for this video. So I don't have it to where I can flip through and show you the names of the ones that I like. But I do remember it was that one of the ones that I liked was the very last story in that book. So, and I gave More Scary Stories a 5-star review because I really thought that for most children, for your average child that does not like horror or may like it a little bit, that the way those stories make your brain work and the wheels start to turn, it can make your imagination go crazy. So it does this job in scaring the crap out of kids. So I gave it a 5 stars. Next prompt is history of magic, and the history of magic is to read a book featuring witches and wizards. Now, I read 2 books that featured witches and or wizards, but the one I chose for this prompt in particular is none other than Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Of course, I was going to read one of these for owls. Like, of course. Definitely, since I haven't reread these since high school. Yeah, since high school. I haven't reread this since high school, so it was time for me to reread it. And of course, I gave this a 5-star review, and I love it just as much as I loved it the first time. Like, it's just taking me back there. And the only question one of the only questions that I still have, which is the same as the questions that I had the first go around, is like, who remembers things so fast when they've only gotten their supplies a month before school starts, other than Hermione? Like, I don't know anyone who has that picture perfect eidetic memory. I don't know anyone like that. So who does that? Who does it? Right? But anyway, love that. Love this. It's Harry, so love it. Muggle Studies. Muggle Studies is to read a contemporary book from the perspective of a Muggle. And I chose Nothing to See Here. This was just a different sort of book. I gave this book a 3-star. The writing style of this book made the book very easy to read, made it to where you didn't really want to put it down. But it was one of those reads that was like, really? Like, really? Really? So yes, I gave it a 3-star review. I gave it a 3-star review because of the children and the ending. I really just wanted more to the story. The ending ended so abruptly, I think, and like they were confused as to what to add to the end or something, to where they had no more ideas, so they just ended it. Like, that's how I felt this book was ended. So yeah, but it was good. I do recommend it to other people, but that's where I'm at with that book. Potions was to read a book under 150 pages, I believe. Yep, a book under 150 pages. And for potions, I chose Mio Dio or Deo. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But this is both the Kindle and the audio. So I read along as I listened, and then some points I just listened to, and then other times I just read it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I gave it a 4 and not a 5 because it seemed like everything happened through the cat. Like, everything happened because of this cat. If it even was an actual cat. That's all I'm going to give away for that story. But it was a good story. I liked it. I would read it again. It's really quick, cute. I think the audience is more towards like preteen or a teenager, because it's not really long, but it's something scary. And if they like to read but don't love to read, you know, that's where we're at with that. But it's really cute. I would read it again. I'd recommend it. I believe that was only like 66 pages. Yeah, so it was only 66 pages. It wasn't anything crazy. And the print was big enough to where it goes by really fast. And the very last book, the very last prompt is Transfiguration. And for Transfiguration, you had to read a book or series that includes shape shifting. This is my second book that I read on this list that also includes a wizard or witch. In this case, is a witch, and it has something to do with shape shifting, which I believe Nothing to See Here also is considered shape shifting because of the children. And as you can see by the picture, the children catch on fire when they can't control their emotions, whether they're happy, sad, nervous, all that stuff. And then they go back to being regular kids. So that's also considered shape shifting or transforming. But the book I chose for this prompt is none other than Beauty and the Beast. It is my favorite Disney princess. And then Tiana? I think it's Tiana, Princess. Oh, I can't think right now. But the one with the Princess and the Frog. But anyway, this is my first and foremost favorite Disney character because it's pretty much like during that time it's like women's rights. We get to marry who we wanted to instead of who our small town dads tell us to or small town moms tell us to. I also like this because it's a woman reading a book, and hello, I love reading. She loves reading. I love reading. The Beast gave her a library. I have a library. Well, this is just a shelf right here, and then the rest of my books are in storage because we don't have a whole lot of space. But my husband plans on getting me a house to where I can makeshift a little room into a library. What else? What else do I love about this? My favorite thing about this book is that it also tells you and shows you that men don't have to live to the societal standards of always having to have a beautiful chick, always having to have a hard heart. Yes, if it wasn't for the witch, he would not have changed. I mean, some of our husbands, if it wasn't for us, would not have changed. And some of us, if it wasn't for our husbands, we would not have changed. But it is showing him that he can still have a soft heart and still love people and get, the things that he desires of his heart. But there is everything about this. Like, she gives him chance after chance. He starts to look within himself and sees the things that he needs to change. Like, what? You can't get any better than that. I don't know. I really, really, really love Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, I have a rose. I have a rose in a glass. So when I do get my library, you better believe that rose in glass is going to be on a center table in the middle of that room, because why the heck not? Anywho, those are the books that I read. Overall, that is 9 books, 2,010 pages, and an average of 3.8 stars, or 3.89 if you want to count the 8 with that bar all the way across until you get to 9. Yeah. And I had 1 star, 0 2 stars, 2 3 stars, 2 4 stars. I said 2 3 stars. The fingers. 2 3 stars, 2 4 stars, and 4 5 stars. So for my first time doing the owls, I had a lot of fun. I met my 4 careers. I completed my 4 careers. But what's even crazier is that going through the career list and reading all 9 of these prompts, I actually managed to hit more than just my 4 careers I was going after. And for that, I'll just tag the pictures at the end of this video of the other prompts, including the 4 prompts that I originally went for, of what careers that my 9 prompts had me to complete. I don't think that those make me a Hogwarts professor, though, because I think there was like more stuff that I had to read to get the Hogwarts professor, and that just wasn't happening. And yeah, because it wasn't happening. because I barely made my 9 books, like barely. But no, I had fun, and I will definitely be doing this again. And I can't wait for the newts to see which ones that I for real pass with newts. Um, but that is all until next time for my May TBR. I will see you then. Bye.